If I were you, I'd watch more YouTube videos. If I lived by the sea, I would go to the beach every day. If I won $1 million, I would give a bunch of it to charity. These statements are maybe funny, maybe true, but the point today is that they use the second conditional. And today I want to show you what the second conditional is and then how to use it. So we'll practice a little bit. I'm Phil from Mayak in the Czech Republic. Thanks for joining me today. Why the second conditional? We use the second conditional to talk about outcomes or results that are very unrealistic or very unlikely that would happen in the future. Like other conditionals, we have two clauses in the second conditional. The first clause is the if clause. So we use the word if, and it's if plus the simple past tense. So the if clause has simple past tense. So then we have the main clause, and the main clause includes a modal verb and then the base form of the verb. So when we talk about modal verbs, we're talking about words like could, would, should, and might. Now, important to remember is the main clause is the clause or the part of the sentence which includes the really unrealistic thing or the unlikely outcome that would happen. That unrealistic or unlikely outcome is going to be in the main clause. As always, we have a couple of warnings today. The first warning is it's really easy to forget, and instead of using the simple past tense in the if clause, which we need, some people, accidentally use the simple present tense in that clause. So an example of this mistake would be saying, if I have $1 million, I would give a bunch of it to charity. So the second part of the sentence is fine, but in the first part, we don't want to say if I have $1 million, but in the if clause, it must be simple past. So if I had $1 million is the correct way to say it. Another common mistake is in the main clause. Sometimes people forget to use the modal verb and then the base form of the verb in that main clause with the unlikely outcome. And instead, they use the future tense. And we don't want to use the future tense. That's not for this. I know it's strange because we're talking about something that would happen in the future, this result. But because it's so unrealistic, we don't want to use the future tense. We want to use would, should, could, or might. So a way that this mistake could happen would be, if I had $1 million, I will give a bunch of it to charity. Nope. We don't want to say, I will give a bunch of it to charity, because it's not really going to happen. It's imaginary, it's unrealistic. So we say, if I had $1 million, I would give a bunch of it to charity. So since we're talking about having a bunch of money, let's start our practice part here. I want to give you the beginning of a sentence, and then I want you to think about some possibilities that could fill in the main clause of the sentence. Let's start with money. If I had $1 million, what? What else? If I had $1 million, I would travel the world. If I had $1 million, I would buy a new car. Or if you're really nice, if I had $1 million, I would give a lot of it to my mom. Wouldn't that be nice? Feel free to comment below in the comments and tell us what you would do if you had $1 million. Make sure to use a second conditional there. So for our next practice, I'm not going to give you the if clause. I'm going to give you the main clause, and I want you to think of an if clause to add on to it. My main clause is, the world would be a much better place. Tell me about it. How would the world be a much better place using the second conditional? Well, if everyone had enough food, the world would be a much better place. If people cared for each other, the world would be a much better place. If there were no more wars, the world would be a much better place. Now, for simplicity today, I'm using the if clause at the beginning and the main clause at the end, but we can easily change those to the other side of the sentence. So for example, the world would be a much better place if there were no wars. No problem. Now, another fun way to use the second conditional is giving advice, but kind of giving advice in a different sort of way. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Imagining someone else's situation, which of course makes this unrealistic because we are not actually that other person and we can't control what they do. But we can give advice in this way using second conditional. So we can start the sentence with, if I were you, what would you do? If I were you, what? Well, for example, if I were you, I'd get a new job. If I were you, I'd get a new job. It means, I think your job isn't very good and you need a new one. So if I were you, I would get a new job. If I were you, I'd be quiet. Maybe somebody's mom says that, right? If I were you, shh, I'd be quiet. If I were you, I wouldn't be so mean. I would be nicer. If I were you, I wouldn't be so mean. Now, you may be looking back at these advice sentences and thinking, this is crazy. It looks weird and it sounds weird, and it's not what I've learned to do with the verb to be. It's true. It is a little different and a little tricky. But whenever we're talking about some unrealistic outcome, hey, second conditional, right? When we have this unrealistic outcome and we're using the verb to be, we always conjugate that verb to be as were, no matter what the subject is. It's always were. Thank you for watching today. I'm still curious what you would do if you had $1 million, so please write that in the comments. Also tell me what you think would make this world a better place. And write that in the comments and we'll have a great little second conditional conversation about it. Have a great day.